I'd like to introduce Mike Malpe. Mike will share the story of how when he was part of Eagle Investment Systems, that he did some great work to align the sales team with his strategy and with his group strategy. So
there aren't any salespeople on the call, are there? No?
No, you're safe. You're safe.
All right. So, like,
On,
I know sarcasm
we're all salespeople in the business. Come on, you should know that. Trick question.
Everybody sells.
As long as you know that sales knows the market better than you do, you'll be successful as a product manager. Yeah. So thanks, Neil, for the intro. So I'm going to go through a use case where we've really played all of this forward about 4 years ago or so at Eagle Investment Systems. I was the head of market strategy and essentially was responsible for our strategy, our go-to-market for new and existing products, and our framework around product management. A little bit of background on Eagle, a financial services firm delivering software to other financial companies. We have 3 products, and they were typically sold in a bundle or a suite of products. Another advantage we had a pretty small sales team, just about a dozen people globally, and over 15 years of history with a strong client base, strong products, and a lot going for us. But what we acknowledged as a firm was we could do more. We could be more strategic. We had grown up as a consulting firm, got into delivering products, and we hadn't quite matured as much as we felt we should have on the product management side and strategic side of things. So the mandate was get more strategic selling as we go forward. So next slide, Neil, please. So what we did was we took what we had kind of built up over time, these 3 products and 3 product management organizations. And what I did was we went and interviewed our existing clients, and we talked to them about problems, about market problems. And we came back with dozens of problems that we could solve for them. And what we wanted to do was look at those problems horizontally, right? We had been so siloed product-wise. We wanted to take that market problem and really deliver the best solution that we could, from initial contact with the prospect all the way to happy, referenceable client. That's kind of how we measured the end-to-end. And we developed these plays, and you see on the screen here the blackboard. It's in the spirit of American football. Really, what it meant was we had a market problem that we prioritized, and everybody in the organization had a role in delivering against that play. And certainly if somebody was in the wrong place, then we weren't going to be successful in delivering that play. So everything was focused around running the play, organization was set, and we were able to then better articulate the value that we deliver to the market, in both internally as a company, and then obviously from a sales and marketing standpoint, externally, we were able to articulate what we could do. Captured opportunities more strategically, and I'll go through that a little bit, and then obviously increase revenue. But the last one, the focusing the organization, we had grown to about 1,000 people, so each individual department now had some guardrails and some strategy to work towards. So we set the market problems that we wanted to solve, we prioritized them, and then everybody set out to to practice their play, essentially to draw up their plans for the year. So what I'll do is I'll go through a little bit of what we did for market segmentation, some best practices, some of the tools that we created, and then how we measure success. So Neil, on the next slide, please. So the first thing we did, so now we came back from the interviews, we had thoughts on what those first market problems that we wanted to solve would be. We talked to the salespeople and relationship people, and we asked them, what do they think the ideal target client is today? And in financial services firms are typically compared to each other by the assets under management, the number of assets in millions or billions that they manage. So we would always get some answer based on, well, I think that a client that sells, that has 50 billion assets under management and greater would be a good fit for our technology. And we say, okay. And the next person would say 40 billion. And we'd ask them, well, how about 49 or 39? Would that be a good fit? And you just kind of probed at them to really try to get at what that meant and get away from these objective measures that really seem somewhat meaningless. And we were able to, by doing that, really dig into the market problems and understand the exact ideal target client that was where the urgency to move would be, the willingness to change, the willingness to pay. And we were able to select that first market problem that we wanted to solve and then identify the exact 44 firms in the market that we knew had the burning problem, were willing to change, and we were able to give the sales team even the names of the people at those firms that they needed to target. And that really, for them, they had been mostly reactive, driven on RFPs and such. This gave them a market to go into, and we focused everything around this play in on those 44 clients or 44 prospects. Now, we talked a lot about in our group on getting buy-in from leadership, right? So you can't be successful getting everybody in your organization, especially a 1,000-person organization, aligned in the field without executive team commitment, and of course the sales team commitment. So what we did was we came back from those interviews and we got all the business leaders into a room, and we went through how we were going to select the first play, largely based on our ability to solve the problem. Have we solved the problem before? Do we have referenceable clients in that space? It was kind of the first one was really like a no-brainer. It was a matter of let's just be more disciplined in this market problem and solving it than we were in the past. And having everybody in the room together, we were able to get that initial buy-in. And then on the sales side of things, the head of sales looked at it and he said, well, if you're going to support me, then absolutely. Like, the easier you make it for me, you have these 44 names that you want me to target. Let's do it. Like, it was a fairly easy conversation. And, then I talked to him about, well, how are we going to incent the salespeople? And he did put some incentives in that yearly plan, the first year out. But as it played out, it came down to make it easy for them to sell, give them a product that they can sell, and a strong message, and they'll gravitate towards that anyways. It'll help them hit the other incentives. You don't necessarily have to force the strategy down on them, at least in our example. And then the last point there is everything has to be revenue based. So apply revenue projections to the strategy, and the executive team's going to listen if those numbers are impressive enough. And that's what we did early on. So some of the tools that we gave the sales team, and we really gave this was obviously for the whole organization, but very focused on sales. We drew up a playbook that distinctly described the ideal target client. As we met with the sales team, we learned that there was this, during the sales process, there was this workshop that they do about a month into a sales cycle. And for us, our sales cycles are 18 months, 2 years. So any quick wins we could get, the better. And we found that over 50% of the prospects that we got to this workshop, we won. So what we did was we really focused in on getting the sales leads, the first conversation, up to this workshop. So it made that 2-year cycle a little bit less daunting. We just said to the salespeople, get them to this workshop and we'll get some success. So we built everything around that first conversation with one of those 44 prospects, and then all the way up to all the conversations you have, the marketing materials that you provide them that show the urgency that they might not see, the solutions that we have in the market and where we differentiate, and why the value of getting to doing this workshop with them was productive. So now at this point, we had a market segmentation, our first place selected. We had executive buy-in from the top down, and we had a playbook that was developed with the sales team. So what we did to train the organization is we actually had the salesperson that helped us write the playbook that had success in the past selling this market problem actually do the training. And I was just a slight nuance, right? They was kind of sick of hearing from me on the topic. So having one of their peers actually go through it and explain to them how they could be successful in selling this into this market would be really powerful, and it was. So we had that first training. We trained them on the playbook. Each team went off and prioritized their work. So the product and development team had roadmaps to adjust. The marketing team had strategy to deal with. The sales team now had pipeline to contact, and we got into this amazing feedback loop where the more conversations we had with the prospects, the more we learned, the more that we integrated into the playbook, and the more we discovered along the process. So we had more potential plays that we could develop, and we also had we were just getting better at running the play. So it got to the point where we had regular feedback, regular conversations with everybody to check in on where we were with the plays, and it became, well, what's the next play? Well, let's do another one. Like it kind of snowballed that way, to the point where, and I'll go through the metrics, where we were ultimately just selling strategic plays versus the opportunistic that we had done in the past.
So, Mike, before we get into the metrics, yes, you were the front person for the plays.
Yeah.
But why don't you talk about who was on the team, because you did a real good job of leveraging others from that point.
Yeah. We had a sales director that had good experiences in this particular market. We had a head of marketing involved. Neil helped us with everything, putting the framework together, interviewing with the clients, having conversations internally, and then we had the product management, development teams, support. Who am I missing, Neil? I think we had everybody represented on our executive council involved with the development of these plays as we went in. And like I said, I physically moved to sit with the sales team during this whole thing, so I could absorb as much as I could and kind of hear as things were going on within the sales, and that helped out a little bit too, getting some credibility for me, and then to have a full appreciation for what they were dealing with.
Yeah, and one of the things we noticed is that product management went from being salespeople saying, what do these guys do, to viewing Mike as the orchestrator of the plays and the person who became the fount of knowledge, because they were talking about market problems where a lot of product managers were just talking about, we have new features. It was feature, 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 feature.
Right.
And also, you got, many of you know Jeremy Scaling. Jeremy is now working for the CMO at the Bank of New York now, so things have gone very well for him. But he was also instrumental in changing the marketing materials away from, we were founded in 1983, 1984. We have 1,000 people with these locations, to really leading with the market problems. And it's, part of it is Mike makes it sound so very easy. But Mike, if you could just talk about what are some of those big challenges that you overcame, because yeah, you make it sound that's like you just go ahead, you get the salespeople on board, everybody salutes you, and everybody does the play. So what were some of
I,
those challenges that you faced?
I only remember the good stuff, Neil. I don't know. I mean, I think it's, I think of a few personalities, maybe. You know, salespeople, I think some of the salespeople had diverse thoughts on the topic, and you know what our first play should be. There was some differing opinions there. I just came back to the criteria that we all agreed to selecting it, and say, well, if you run it through this criteria, it's clearly the best one. So you had a little bit of that opposition, and then getting the product and development team to think of it in terms of market problem that we're solving versus the product or feature that you want to kind of give to a client. That paradigm shift was tricky. And then on the sales enablement side of things was getting them out of that paradigm of, and Neil, you just said it, here's what we do, here's us, and then we'll talk about the prospect a little later. We were now able to move the market problem up to slide number 1, and then towards the end of our sales presentation, we gave them some background on us that was, you know, added in versus being the centerpiece of our sales presentations.
Yep, excellent.
So
you want to talk about your metrics?
yeah, so by now we had the plays, the strategy really as the marquee topic at our quarterly business meetings, where we brought the whole company together. The CEO would come in and talk about, here's the status of the plays and here's where we are on the plays. And 2 statistics that I used that I thought were really powerful. One was obviously the revenue opportunity per play, per market problem that we were solving. And then lastly, the way that we shifted the sales pipeline from opportunistic to strategic. And by the end, we were about 80% of our sales pipeline was attached to a play. And the rest, the 20 other percent was opportunistic. And nothing wrong with that 20%, just what it now did was allowed us to focus everywhere else in the company towards that 80% sales pipeline. And that's how we measured success as we went forward, either looking at trends month over month and then ultimately looking at revenue wins that were attached to the plays.
Yeah.
So it became well, quickly was, okay, this is great. What's the next one? The next one and the next one, almost to the point where I couldn't scale it up the way, and I couldn't provide the level of support and like the playbook was so detailed, the first one, and then the second one was a little bit less detailed. That was a struggle that I had with scaling up what I had implemented.
Yeah, the other thing is that, and that was very powerful, like a lot of companies, they had a year in review meeting in December, just before the holidays. And the CEO, started off by saying, these are the major wins that we have. But then the first thing that he talked about beyond the major wins was the plays. Any questions or comments about this here?
Sure. Neil, just a great presentation, if Mike can hear me. If not, tell him later. But I know you and Mike have worked extensively on the playbooks, and I think everyone has their own idea of what a playbook is. I mean, I've seen playbooks that are more marketing brochures. I've seen them that are incomplete. I've seen them that are good and that are really good and that are almost useless. Could you just share a little bit about the criticality of, or how the playbook that's been effective has worked for you and how it was developed and what was included, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, one of the things that was real interesting is we created a playbook, nothing fancy. It was in words. We didn't invest in fancy graphics, but what we found with the playbook was that it was 25 pages. And we got a lot of pushback from sales, like, I don't have time to read 25 pages. This is one of the things Mike can get into when he rejoins us. But I don't have time to read 25 pages. And we were there. You're selling multi-million-dollar software and services projects. Hey, Mike. Mark Kalin just asked a question about. Welcome back. Asked a question about the playbook, and I was talking about how there was pushback from some of the salespeople that I don't have time to read 25 pages.
Yeah, well, Neil, you remember. So where it really hit home was my boss was on a plane to Ohio to visit a prospect that was within one of those 44 clients of prospects, and she read the playbook, and it was really that her reading that playbook really changed the game for me and for everything, because she then had a full appreciation for all the work that we had done. She hadn't read it before. She had gone to the training and everything, but that's really what changed it. And then she came back and said, "Oh yeah, sales, to the sales team, yeah, you're going to read this and you're going to follow it." I can't say that they all did, but that was, the kind of pushback that we got. But I'll take it, right? I mean, for a sales team that had never been supported that way, I'll take that as the negative.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Good. Other questions?
I was going to follow on that. Is that a worthy topic for a future PEF if it hasn't been covered in the past, to actually talk about what goes into a playbook or how to apply it?
Just, we'll do a quick survey. Just raise your hand so we can see you if you think playbooks would be an interesting topic.
Yeah, you could go to it's on your next slide, Neil. You could flash that as oh, you took there, here. This is just some of the attributes that we had in the playbook, but we could cover this.
Yeah, we'll post this here as well. But the key thing about playbooks, having done dozens and dozens and dozens of playbooks, is that there's no one form. You can't go and Google. Or you could go and Google sales playbook contents, but so much of this was customized. This was aligned. If you look at the language here, it's Miller-Hyman language, which was a sales methodology used by Eagle. And so, the playbook has to be customized and set up with how you want the salespeople to sell. And in fact, one of the breakout groups hit the nail on the head when we started talking about the sales journey. You want to make sure the playbook supports the sales journey. And one of the keep in mind that at Eagle, they were not being asked to sell million-dollar projects. They were asked to get the client and our prospect to commit to a 2-day workshop. So it was very different. And the playbook was really geared to get them to the workshop. Other questions or? All right. If not, I just want to thank Mike tremendously for the time. This was not an insignificant amount of time investment on Mike's part to pull this together. So Mike, also, why don't you tell where are you now and just talk about your own journey career-wise within Bank of New York Mellon.
Oh, I'm now with Bank of New York Mellon in their product team in a strategy role. To be determined specifics, but ultimately, I think in some form rolling this out for the greater BNY Mellon, or a form of it.
Yeah, so you basically your responsibilities have significantly expanded.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, Mike contributed to a couple of pragmatic articles on this, so we'll be posting that on the Slack channel as well. And without any further questions, let's start to wrap this up so you guys can take a quick break before your 9 o'clock meetings. And couple topics. One was working with the sales team, and then also sales playbooks could be topics for future PF discussions.